Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you're all doing okay, staying safe in quarantine. Today we're going to be talking about The Platform on Netflix. This movie came out in Spain originally. It's an international film in September 2019, but it was just put on Netflix in March, and I finally got to see it. I thought it was a TV show at first. It's actually just an hour and a half movie. It's really short and a very interesting idea. We'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to mention this name, but it's a Spanish name and I don't want to fuck it up. So it was directed by Galder Gaztelu Urrutia. And he hasn't directed anything else that I know of personally. He did direct a movie called Crash in 2005. Not that Crash. Probably a better one. Anyway, it is a very interesting concept. So basically, the platform is kind of like one of my friends described it as a version sort of Snowpiercer, where you have the train that takes everybody around the world who's living and everybody who's poor is in the back, everybody who's rich is in the front. I kind of define it as Snowpiercer, but instead of horizontal, it's vertical. And you'll see what I mean when you watch it, but it's really because it's about this jail cell that, or I don't want to say it's jail. It's like imprisonment, but it's so many levels. It's like 200 some, maybe more or less. We don't know. Well, we know it's somewhere around there, and it's called the hole, and every cell is a square, but it has this square hole in the middle of it so that you can see all the way up and all the way down into the rest of the cell or the rest of the levels. And every day, a giant platform of food comes down to your level. You can eat as much as you want of what's there, and then it's sent down. And that happens every day. The problem is everybody on top can eat as much as they want. So by the time it gets to the bottom, depending on how many levels there are, there might not be anything left for the people in like the bottom 50. And every month, so every 30 days, you get switched around. So you could be a level 6 one day or 1 month, and then you could be on level 198, something like that. And so it's a survival thing, it's a mental thing, it's trusting the partner, your cellmate that you're in there with, and it's a very taxing movie. At first it seems like there's a pretty good flow to it, but it's kind of like 10 Cloverfield Lane, sort of that kind of movie where you're in the same place the whole movie, so you start to feel that cabin fever, that claustrophobia. So I'll start off with the positive things. The look of this movie is really, really interesting. There's actually a short film that it reminded me of that is basically just about this person who's brought into a jail cell and realizes there's something in this box, and if he puts his hand inside the box, a giant hand comes down into the room. The aesthetic of it looked like that. It reminded me a little bit. And the characters are very interesting too. There's a good amount of characters in this movie because we follow the main character Gurang as he moves through the levels and gets different cellmates. And it's interesting, all the characters that he meets, because they're all obviously very different in ways and treat him differently. And it's really just about Gorang's it's one of those characters that I really like, where you have a character who's morally good, but throughout they change, they harden. And so by the end, he could still be morally good, but he is not messing around anymore. And it's really interesting. Everybody thinks that he's nuts because he brings a book. You can bring one object into the cell, and he brings a book. Most people try to bring rope, a spear, something to survive with. Then he brings a book. Don Quixote. So he's, the oddball of the bunch. But that could be why he's our main character. He's something different than everybody else. He's not just trying to survive, And really the themes here are all about working together and splitting things up and leaving something for other people, not being greedy. It gets into a lot of themes like that. It's very the script is very well done, I think, in that it shows, it doesn't tell themes, but it shows themes throughout actions and through interactions with people and their kind of discussions about how we should be treating each other, things like that. Now, with this idea, it's one of those ideas that I think is such a simple idea that you could go anywhere with it. You know, it's not like one of those really complex ideas that you have to take 40 minutes to try to figure out what's even going on. It's such a simple idea that I love those things because you could take it in any direction. And they take it in a lot of interesting ways, which I was really happy about. They take it in a lot of new ways I wouldn't have thought. You know, I had some ideas in mind of if I were to write this, I would think, even without having written it so far, I would think, okay, well, if I had to just guess at what the end's going to be, it's going to be he's going to end up here. He's going to end up here. And they took it different ways, which I will grant was very, very well done because it's something I wouldn't have thought of, and it was a really cool idea, or set of ideas that they went with. And again, the cinematography is really, really cool. And when they go to sleep, there's a red light, so it's just washed out with red for like, you know, probably a good quarter or third of the movie, which is really cool. It's very unnerving. Along with the script, though, I will say kind of I guess, my big negative of the movie is that some things don't quite make sense. There are some things that when the platform goes down, it comes back up after it's done being like going down. So my thing is, I don't understand why people don't go all the way down and then just wait for it to come back. I mean, it flies, but I don't understand why they don't go back up to the top if they really want to get out of there. Because that's the thing, is this movie is very visceral and raw. It is very surreal at times, mentally, when he's kind of going a little bit nuts, and he's starting to kind of hallucinate. But it's very visceral physically because people are. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at what to your imagination what probably happened. But there is a lot of violence. There's a lot of very disturbing elements to how people survive in the movie, or maybe not survive. But it is, while it's very visceral, a lot of it doesn't quite make sense in terms of why people do the things that they do or don't do some things. And it seems to be that there's some easy ways out that they probably could have, you know, given, like, oh, you can't do this, but they never do. And that really is my main problem with the movie, is that it's a little vague. The history of this place isn't explained that well. It's explained a little bit in flashbacks, and flashbacks, but not a whole lot. And there's a lot of things about how this works that aren't exactly explained well. There's one point where the main character Gorang says that he's here because if he's here for 6 months, he walks out with a degree just for being here for 6 months, because it's sort of like a social experiment. And you're led to believe, okay, well, he volunteered himself in here, you know, he's kind of the oddball. But then they talk about other people getting degrees after, even though they seem to have been sent here more as for prison. So it doesn't make sense. I'm not sure whether everybody's here for the degree, or if everyone's here because they're criminals, or a bit of both. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure exactly what their goal is. Well, you do sort of by the end, but it seems like there was some stuff that was missing in terms of we don't really see the government, or, you know, the them that they talk about, the big higher order. We don't really see them a whole lot. We do in one character, but we don't get a whole lot of the behind the scenes, which I think is interesting, but also it leads to a lot of questions. And the end, while it is a very good idea, it doesn't quite. What they do makes sense, but how it ends for the main character doesn't, to me. For multiple reasons. I'm obviously not going to get into why, but for multiple reasons, it doesn't make sense to me. Why he did what he did. But I will say the script, in terms of the dialogue, the actual writing of it, is very clever. There's a lot of very interesting back and forth dialogue that's very quick and just interesting to watch. Like this one character who says obviously all the time. It's just really cool. So it was very interesting movie to watch, even if it was kind of vague. I would have liked a more concrete ending, not so much because the ending's kind of implied, and I was okay with that. But I would have liked a more concrete ending that didn't. It wasn't like, oh, it could have meant this. It could have meant this. There were just some things that, like I said, overall weren't explained that well. So that was my big negative. But I will say it is a very interesting idea. It has a lot of deep themes, and it goes in very interesting different directions. If it's one of those that you, like I said last time, if you want to see a movie that is very intense and not one that's very relaxing, something like that, this is the movie for you. And it's very short. So once it's like in my last review, 9. Once you get to about an hour in, you're starting to get to the climax already, sort of. Yeah, so I'm gonna give the platform a 3 out of 4. Definitely watch it. Don't expect that it's going to quite make sense for most. I mean, it's not like super vague or anything, but there were just some things I felt a little unfinished about, unsatisfied about. But I'm gonna give it definitely a 3 out of 4 because it is a very interesting movie. And if you've seen Snowpiercer, you'll probably really like this one too. It's a little less on the nose. It's a little more thematic and abstract. Very good movie though. Also, you noticed that I didn't do movie suggestions. I figure I'm actually going to do those separately because I want to give a little bit more time to each of them. I don't want to have to try to cram them into the beginning of a video. So I'm going to give them their own videos. That way I can really dive into them a little bit and, just have more content out for you guys during the week. Yeah, so if you have, again, any suggestions for the kinds of movies you want to see, that's what I'll be doing next. And also, this is the beginning of one of my favorite weeks of the year, even though it's not really an official thing, but I call Geek Week. Because tomorrow is the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts, quote unquote. And then, what's tomorrow? Saturday, Sunday. Monday is May the 4th be with you. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, whichever one you want to pick, Revenge of the 5th, Revenge of the 6th, whatever. Return of the, whatever, who cares? It's Geek Week. So I'm going to be doing some videos on those too. So look forward to all of that. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. And I'll see you guys later.